Now, with Tom Cruise having a very successful press tour for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and really connecting with fans and really telling them how important filmmaking really is, how important it is for an actor to perform and really go at its best when it comes to really embracing yourself in this story. However, we know that Robert De Niro recently went off the rails at the Cannes Film Festival, really going off on Donald Trump, going off on the president, and really turning it into a political issue. And guess who else was there? We know that Tom Cruise also was at the Cannes Film Festival to promote Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And well, basically what happened is that we already know that a lot of actors, a lot of celebrities, some of which are now finally beginning to actually call out Robert De Niro either directly or indirectly. And well, when it comes down to Tom Cruise, this is where things get interesting. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Robert De Niro right now is that he is getting a ton of backlash, and when I say a ton, I'm talking about probably the worst backlash yet, because it really turned the Cannes Film Festival into a complete mess. After he went on stage, he went into his acceptance speech, and it was nothing to do with his overall award. It had nothing to do with his achievement. It had strictly to do with politics. And well, Tom Cruise recently fired back at Robert De Niro in the best professional way possible, and in a very, indirect way. It's going to be interesting. However, let's get into the overall details here. Now, we know that Tom Cruise is all about creativity. We know that he's all about being a professional, really staying clear from politics and not dragging any kind of an agenda or messaging into his films, which is exactly why, by the way, they succeed beyond records. However, with, of course, the Robert De Niro situation and how he's facing the worst backlash in his life and his career after going off on President Trump and at the Cannes Film Festival and turning his speech into an entire political rant, some celebrities are already coming forward calling out De Niro, including Tom Cruise, who was also at the film festival to promote Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning at times. Tom Cruise recently delivered the following in the midst of the De Niro situation. I think it's important that we as actors and as filmmakers know our place in this industry, and especially our place at an event like this at Cannes, which is just so beautiful and inspiring to so many filmmakers. It is not in our position to turn the arts or the industry into something political that would divide or alienate an audience. That's something I do not advocate at all, and once you begin to make anything political, I think that is where you have already lost your creativity and your creative flow. That's not what I'm about, and that's not what my amazing team, including Chris, is all about. We are here to make movies. We are not here to lecture our audience on what is right or what is wrong in a society or anything to do with politics. We are actors. We are filmmakers, and so that's exactly what we should do. Perform and make movies to entertain our audience. I am beyond thrilled to see that we are having a fun press tour for The Final Reckoning, and I just am asking everyone to not fall into the negative waves when it involves promoting films or the arts. Whether you are on stage representing a film or a studio or accepting a milestone, it should never be intertwined with politics. So guys, let me just stop there, alright? Now, obviously he is alluding all of this to Robert De Niro and exactly what he said on stage, and right there when Tom Cruise really talks about you should never make anything political, especially when you are accepting a milestone or an achievement on stage or anything like that. Now look, he's doing this in a very professional, indirect way, but it is a jab at Robert De Niro. There is no question about it. And we know that Tom Cruise is a professional at heart, and this is as professional as you can get. He's really kind of sending out a message there, and a right message, by the way, that making movies, acting in movies, should never be about politics. There should really never be a full-on agenda there, unless, for example, it is a period piece where you're actually going throughout history and stuff like that. But in this case, nothing should ever be political when you're making an action movie, when you're making a fun, entertaining movie, and that's what Tom Cruise is talking about. That's why he never drags, any kind of an agenda into his films, because as he says here, that would actually divide and alienate the audience. He gets it. This is exactly why Top Gun Maverick was a smashing success. This is exactly why his previous movies were also major blockbusters. And this one is expected to do very well at the box office as well. Right around Memorial Day weekend, I think it's going to do numbers. So he goes on to further actually go into detail here. Because once you go there, he says, you are detaching yourself from your passion. We are here to strictly make movies, period. And that's all I would really like to talk about. But I thought it was important to address that as actors. It's for the best to not make things into a political or personal issue with the public or our audience that decides to go ahead and see our movies. At that point, once you go there, there really is nowhere else to go with your passion. And so this is why I stand for focusing on entertainment strictly, and only either when you are making movies, promoting them, or even releasing them into the theaters. That's what it's all about, having fun and to entertain. This is a lesson that should be handed down to all filmmakers and actors, including some that are obviously misguided in some areas. Many come up to me sometimes and ask, Mr. Cruz, where do you stand? My only response is just what I want to focus on is the movies. That's all. I am just so honored to see the support that I have for The Final Reckoning, and I promise this will be absolute cinema if you do get the chance to go ahead and see it. We are not here to lecture, divide, or alienate any kind of an audience. It's our job as filmmakers to remain disconnected from politics and messaging in our films to really allow the audience to escape fully into an experience, into a whole new world, and to talk about that experience for the years to come. Again, I mean, there you have it, Tom Cruise, just coming out of what he actually said about, what was it, like 5-6 days ago, maybe a week ago at this point, where we had a correspondent really pressing, the 100% tariff on Tom Cruise and what he thought about that outside of the U.S. And he said, listen, he actually stopped the correspondent and said, I would just like to talk about the movies. That's it. So he's doing the same exact thing here, coming out of the whole Robert De Niro situation. And look, Robert De Niro really created a major fuss at the Cannes Film Festival because now a lot of people are turning on him. A lot of producers are very unhappy with his behavior on stage. It's one thing to actually make a little blurb about politics, that's also just completely unprofessional when you're an actor on stage, 100% there. But it's another thing to turn your entire acceptance speech into a political rant on President Donald Trump. That really just goes to show you how, crazy, how much of a lunatic Robert De Niro really is, to the point that you even have to have Tom Cruise coming out to lecture, not really lecture, but to really kind of just address how important filmmaking really is, and to not drag any kind of political nonsense into making movies or into accepting a milestone on stage or anything like that. And he put him in his place, basically, indirectly here. That's what he did. And you're going to have more actors, I believe. You're going to have people like Mel Gibson talking about Robert De Niro again, as he did before. It's going to be interesting to see what happens from this point on forward. And so that's exactly why I think also studios like HBO and Disney, they can really learn a lesson or two based on Tom Cruise and his experience by making box office records. We know that films like Top Gun Maverick, we know that The Final Reckoning, for example, it's going to do numbers as well. They have great press tours. He connects with the fans. This is all seen on camera. It spreads good word of mouth. That's how his movies do very well, not just for the press tour, but the way that he makes the films, the way that Chris makes the movies as well. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.